The night sky over Seoul was usually a comforting sight for Jae-hyun. As an astrophysicist who spent most of his life studying the stars, he found peace in their distant glow. But tonight, something felt wrong. The air seemed heavier, and the usual hum of the city below was quieter than usual. Standing on the roof of the observatory, Jae-hyun adjusted his glasses and stared through the telescope. What he saw, or rather, what he didn't see, sent a chill down his spine. The stars were fading. At first, he thought it might be clouds or some kind of atmospheric disturbance. But as he checked different parts of the sky, the truth became undeniable. Stars that had been shining brightly just hours ago were now dimming, disappearing one by one. It wasn't natural. It couldn't be. Jae-hyun rushed inside the control room, where monitors displayed data collected from satellites orbiting Earth. His colleague, Haimi, was already there, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she analyzed incoming information. She looked up when Jae-hyun entered, her face pale. "Something's blocking us," she said without preamble. "A massive energy field has formed around Earth. It's cutting off all communication with our satellites and distorting signals from space." Jae-hyun frowned. "How is that possible? Did we detect any anomalies before this happened?" Jaime shook her head. "Nothing. One moment, everything was normal, and the next, this." She pointed to a graph showing a sudden spike in electromagnetic activity. "It's like someone flipped a switch." The two scientists exchanged worried glances. They both knew what this could mean, but neither wanted to say it out loud. Humanity had long speculated about extraterrestrial life, but no one expected contact to come in such a hostile form. Whatever or whoever had created this barrier clearly didn't want Earth talking to the rest of the universe. Over the next few days, panic spread across the globe. News outlets reported strange phenomena, GPS systems failing, weather patterns shifting unpredictably, and even the auroras vanishing from polar skies. Governments scrambled to understand what was happening, but answers remained elusive. Scientists debated theories ranging from solar flares to rogue black holes, but none could explain why Earth suddenly appeared to be trapped under a dome of invisible energy. For Jae-hyun and Haimi, the mystery only deepened. They worked tirelessly in the observatory, running simulations and analyzing every scrap of data they could gather. Sleep became a luxury neither could afford. Their small team grew increasingly frustrated as they hit dead end after dead end. Then, late one evening, Jae-hyun noticed something unusual. While reviewing satellite readings, he spotted faint traces of energy flowing outward from Earth's surface. At first glance, it looked like random noise, but upon closer inspection, he realized it wasn't random at all. The energy was being siphoned away, slowly but steadily. "Hi, me!" he called out, his voice tinged with urgency. "Come look at this." She hurried over, leaning over his shoulder to examine the screen. Her eyes widened as she processed the implications. "This can't be right," she murmured. "If the barrier is draining Earth's resources, it won't just cut us off from space. It'll kill us." Jae-hyun nodded grimly. "Exactly. We need to figure out how to stop it, and fast." As the days turned into weeks, Jae-hyun and Haimi began piecing together fragments of evidence pointing to an alien origin for the barrier. Buried deep within classified military files, they discovered reports of unidentified objects appearing near Earth's orbit shortly before the barrier appeared. These objects emitted pulses of energy similar to those detected in the barrier itself. "It's not just a coincidence," Jae-hyun said during one of their late-night brainstorming sessions. "Whoever built this thing knew exactly what they were doing. They've isolated us on purpose." "But why?" Jaime asked, pacing back and forth. "What do they gain from cutting us off?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Jae-hyun replied. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Maybe they see us as a threat, or maybe they're afraid of us. Either way, we're dealing with beings far more advanced than we are." Despite the overwhelming odds, Jaime refused to give up. "There has to be a way to fight back," she insisted. "We can't just sit here and wait for them to finish whatever they're planning." Jae-hyun sighed. "And what do you suggest we do? Build a spaceship and fly up there to knock on their door?" To his surprise, Jaime stopped pacing and fixed him with a determined stare. "Actually, that's not a bad idea. Their conversation marked the beginning of a bold plan. Jae-hyun and Jaime reached out to other experts in fields ranging from aerospace engineering to artificial intelligence. Among those who joined their cause were Min-soo, a former fighter pilot whose skills in aerial combat made him invaluable, Eun-ji, a cybernetics expert known for her work in hacking secure networks, and Dong-woo, a robotics prodigy whose inventions had earned him both fame and controversy. Together, they formed a secret alliance dedicated to breaking through the barrier. Operating under the radar, they pooled their knowledge and resources to develop technology capable of challenging the alien construct. They named themselves THOR, an acronym for Tactical Human Offensive Response, and vowed to protect humanity from whatever threats lay beyond the stars. But building such technology would take time, and time was running out. Each day brought new challenges. Power shortages caused by the barrier's energy drain, natural disasters triggered by disruptive weather patterns, and growing unrest among frightened populations. World leaders dismissed THOR's warnings as paranoid speculation, refusing to acknowledge the severity of the situation. Still, the team pressed on. In hidden labs scattered across the globe, they worked tirelessly to create their ultimate weapon, a fusion-powered spacecraft designed to penetrate the barrier. They called it Mjolnir, after the legendary hammer wielded by THOR, the Norse god of thunder. Like its namesake, Mjolnir was meant to deliver a decisive blow against their unseen enemies. As months passed, progress on Mjolnir accelerated. The ship's sleek design incorporated cutting-edge materials and experimental propulsion systems, making it faster and stronger than anything humanity had ever built. Yet doubts lingered in the minds of some team members. Eun-ji, in particular, voiced concerns about the ethics of their mission. What if we're wrong? She asked during one heated discussion. What if these aliens aren't trying to harm us? Maybe they think they're protecting us. Jaime shook her head. Protecting us? By starving us of sunlight and collapsing ecosystems? That doesn't sound like protection to me. And what happens if we succeed? Eun-ji shot back. If we break through the barrier and start a war with a superior race, how will humanity survive? Jae-hyun stepped in, his tone calm but firm. We don't have the luxury of waiting to find out. If we do nothing, billions of lives will be lost. This is our only chance to fight back. Reluctantly, Eun-ji agreed to stay, though her reservations remained. For better or worse, THOR was united in its goal, to confront the architects of the barrier and demand answers. The final piece of the puzzle came unexpectedly. While monitoring radio frequencies for signs of alien activity, Dong-woo intercepted a faint signal originating from beyond the barrier. Though garbled and incomplete, the message contained coordinates and schematics for a device capable of amplifying Mjolnir's power. It was signed by an unknown sender calling themselves the Lumina. They're offering help, Dong-woo explained, excitement evident in his voice. Whoever the Lumina are, they seem to oppose the barrier's creators. Jaime studied the schematics carefully. If we integrate this tech into Mjolnir, we might stand a real chance of breaking through. But it's risky. We don't know who sent this or why. We don't have a choice, Jae-hyun said firmly. This could be our best shot. With renewed determination, THOR set to work integrating the Lumina's modifications into Mjolnir. Every bolt tightened, every circuit soldered brought them closer to their goal. And though the path ahead was fraught with danger, they held on to hope for themselves, for humanity, and for the future of Earth. Above them, the stars remained hidden, but in their hearts, the light of defiance burned brighter than ever. The decision to build Mjolnir had come with a heavy price. For Jae-hyun, Jaime, and the rest of THOR, every waking moment was consumed by the mission. They worked in secret, hidden away in underground labs and abandoned facilities scattered across South Korea. Each location was chosen carefully, far from prying eyes, but close enough to resources they desperately needed. Supplies were scarce, and time was running out. Jae-hyun spent most of his days poring over blueprints and calculations, his mind racing with possibilities and worst-case scenarios. He knew that Mjolnir wasn't just a spacecraft. It was humanity's last hope. If it failed, Earth would be doomed. But even as he pushed forward, doubts gnawed at him. Could they really pull this off? Were they simply delaying the inevitable? Jaime, on the other hand, refused to let fear cloud her focus. She was the backbone of the team, keeping everyone motivated and organized. Her sharp mind and steady hands made her indispensable when it came to engineering solutions for problems no one had ever faced before. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow in the corner of the lab seemed suspicious. It didn't help that governments around the world were growing increasingly hostile toward independent research groups like THOR. Min-Soo, the former fighter pilot, brought a different kind of energy to the team. Where Jae-hyun was cautious and analytical, Min-Soo was bold and action-oriented. He had spent years flying jets, dodging missiles, and pushing machines to their limits. Now, he applied that same relentless drive to testing Mjolnir systems. His expertise in aerodynamics and combat tactics proved invaluable, especially when it came to designing the ship's defensive capabilities. Eun-ji remained the voice of caution within THOR. Though she supported the mission, she often clashed with Jae-hyun and Jaime over ethical concerns. "We're playing God here," she argued during one tense meeting. "If we break through the barrier and provoke these aliens, we could start a war we can't win." "It's not about provoking them," Jaime countered. "It's about survival. If we don't act now, billions of people will die. Is that what you want?" Eun-ji sighed, rubbing her temples. "No, but I also don't want us to rush into something without thinking it through. We need to consider the consequences." Dongwoo, the youngest member of the team, rarely spoke during these debates. Instead, he focused on his work, tinkering with robots and drones that would assist in Mjolnir's construction. Despite his quiet demeanor, his contributions were crucial. His creations handled tasks too dangerous or delicate for humans, freeing up the rest of the team to focus on bigger challenges. As weeks turned into months, the pressure mounted. Building Mjolnir required materials that were difficult to obtain: rare metals, advanced alloys, and components salvaged from decommissioned satellites. Some items could be purchased discreetly on the black market, but others had to be stolen. One such mission took place in the dead of night at an abandoned military base on the outskirts of Busan. Min-Soo led the operation, accompanied by Dongwoo and two of his robotic assistants. The target was a storage facility rumored to house plasma cores, powerful energy sources essential for Mjolnir's propulsion system. The team moved quickly, slipping past guards and disabling security cameras with practiced ease. Inside the facility, they found crates filled with the precious cores. But as they loaded them onto a waiting truck, alarms blared. Searchlights swept across the compound, illuminating their escape route. "Move!" Min-Soo shouted, shoving Dongwoo toward the exit. The robots carried the heavy crates, while Min-Soo covered their retreat, firing short bursts from a silenced rifle to disable pursuing vehicles. Bullets whizzed past his head as he dived into the truck, slamming the door shut behind him. Back at the lab, the team celebrated their narrow escape, but the victory was bittersweet. They had what they needed, but the mission had drawn unwanted attention. News outlets reported the theft, speculating about who might be responsible. Government agents began investigating, and THOR knew it was only a matter of time before they were discovered. Despite the risks, progress on Mjolnir continued. The ship's sleek frame took shape in a cavernous hangar deep beneath Mount Yuri. Its hull gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights, a testament to countless hours of labor. Advanced engines hummed softly as technicians ran diagnostics, ensuring every component functioned perfectly. But the real test would come when Mjolnir left Earth's atmosphere. To prepare for that moment, THOR conducted simulations in Earth's upper atmosphere, using modified drones to mimic the conditions they expected to encounter beyond the barrier. These tests revealed both strengths and weaknesses in the ship's design. During one particularly grueling trial, Mjolnir's prototype struggled against intense gravitational forces generated by the barrier. Sensors detected structural stress that could compromise the hull if not addressed. Jae-hyun and Jaime worked tirelessly to reinforce the frame, while Dongwoo programmed his robots to perform precision welding in hard-to-reach areas. Even with these improvements, tensions ran high. Everyone knew the stakes. A single mistake could doom the entire mission, and possibly humanity itself. As THOR prepared for the next phase of testing, internal conflicts threatened to tear the team apart. Eun-ji's concerns about provoking the aliens grew louder, Fueled by sleepless nights and mounting stress, she confronted Jae-hyun after another heated debate, her voice trembling with frustration. "Do you ever stop to think about what happens after we break through?" she demanded. "What if they retaliate? What if they destroy us?" Jae-hyun met her gaze, his expression unreadable. "Of course I think about it. Every day. But doing nothing is worse. If we sit back and wait, the barrier will kill us anyway. At least this way we have a chance." Eun-ji shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "A chance isn't enough, not when so much is at stake." Before Jae-hyun could respond, Hae-mi intervened. "We all feel the weight of this responsibility," she said gently. "But we can't let fear paralyze us. We've come too far to give up now." Her words seemed to calm Eun-ji, though the tension lingered. Over the following days, the team redoubled their efforts, channeling their anxieties into their work. Slowly but surely, Mjolnir neared completion. Meanwhile, outside forces began closing in on THOR. Surveillance drones appeared overhead, circling their hidden labs with increasing frequency. Encrypted messages intercepted by Eun-ji suggested that government agencies were collaborating with private security firms to track down the group. Someone or something was watching them. "We need to move," Min-soo warned during an emergency meeting. "If they find us, they'll shut us down before we can launch." Hae-mi nodded grimly. "He's right. We'll relocate to the secondary site. It's smaller, but it should be secure enough for the final stages of preparation." Relocation was risky, but staying put was even more dangerous. Under cover of darkness, the team dismantled their equipment and transported it to a new location, an abandoned subway tunnel beneath Seoul. The space was cramped and damp, but offered protection from aerial surveillance. Once settled, they resumed work with renewed urgency. Every second counted. The barrier's effects on Earth were worsening, with ecosystems collapsing and weather patterns spiraling out of control. Food shortages sparked riots in major cities, and desperation spread like wildfire. Amid the chaos, THOR clung to hope. They believed in Mjolnir and in themselves. Against all odds, they were determined to break free from the prison imposed upon them by an unknown enemy. Above them, the stars remained hidden, their light stolen by the oppressive barrier. But in the hearts of Jae-hyun, Hae-mi, Min-soo, Eun-ji, and Dong-woo, a spark of defiance burned brighter than ever. Whatever lay beyond the barrier, they were ready to face it head-on. The days leading up to Mjolnir's final assembly were a blur of activity. Jae-hyun, Hae-mi, and the rest of THOR worked around the clock, their movements fueled by adrenaline and sheer determination. The abandoned subway tunnel beneath Seoul had become their sanctuary, though it was far from ideal. The air was damp, the lighting poor, and the constant hum of machinery made conversation difficult. But none of that mattered. They were too focused on their mission to notice the discomfort. Jae-hyun spent most of his time in the main chamber, where Mjolnir stood like a gleaming titan waiting to be unleashed. Its sleek frame reflected the harsh glow of overhead bulbs, and its engines thrummed softly as technicians ran final tests. He knew every inch of the ship intimately, from the reinforced hull to the intricate network of circuits powering its advanced systems. Yet, despite his confidence in the design, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Hae-mi noticed his unease during one late-night inspection. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice cutting to the din of tools and machinery. Jae-hyun hesitated, running a hand along the ship's surface. "It's hard to explain. Everything seems perfect on paper, but I keep thinking about all the things that could go wrong. What if we miss something?" Hae-mi placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We've done everything we can. You've built the best ship humanity has ever seen. Trust yourself and trust the team." Her words brought a small measure of comfort, but Jae-hyun couldn't fully relax. There were still too many unknowns. Would Mjolnir hold up against the barrier's immense energy? Could they even breach it without triggering some kind of catastrophic reaction? These questions haunted him, but he pushed them aside for now. There was no time for doubt. Obtaining the materials needed to complete Mjolnir proved to be one of the biggest challenges yet. While Dongwoo's robots handled much of the delicate assembly work, certain components had to be sourced from outside the lab. This meant sending Min-Su and Eun-ji on dangerous missions into territories controlled by hostile forces or heavily guarded facilities. One such mission took place in the ruins of an old industrial complex near Pyongyang. Intelligence gathered by Eun-ji suggested that the site housed rare alloys critical for reinforcing Mjolnir's outer shell. Getting in undetected would be nearly impossible, but they had no choice. Min-Su led the operation, accompanied by two of Dongwoo's drones equipped with stealth technology. The journey there was tense, with checkpoints and patrols forcing them to take circuitous routes through dense forests and crumbling buildings. By the time they reached the complex, exhaustion weighed heavily on both humans and machines. Inside, they found what they were looking for, crates filled with shimmering metal plates. But as they began loading the materials onto a transport vehicle, alarms blared. Floodlights illuminated the area, and armed guards poured out of nearby structures. "Go!" Min-Su shouted, firing short bursts from his rifle to cover their retreat. Eun-ji sprinted toward the truck, clutching a duffel bag filled with samples. The drones carried the heavier crates, while Min-Su fended off attackers, his movements precise and calculated. Bullets ricocheted off walls as they raced for the exit. Just as they reached the truck, a grenade exploded nearby, sending shrapnel flying. Min-Su dug behind the vehicle, shielding himself from the blast. When the dust settled, he scrambled to his feet, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. "We're clear," Eun-ji called from the driver's seat, engine revving. Min-Su leapt into the passenger side, slamming the door shut as she sped away. Behind them, the complex burned, flames licking at the night sky. Neither spoke as they drove back to the lab, adrenaline keeping them alert despite their injuries. Back underground, the team worked tirelessly to integrate the new materials into Mjolnir's structure. Progress was slow but steady, and morale remained high despite the risks. Everyone understood the importance of their mission. Failure wasn't an option, but tensions simmered beneath the surface. Eun-ji's reservations about breaking through the barrier continued to fuel heated debates. During one particularly intense argument, she confronted Jae-hyun and Jaime, her voice rising above the clamor of the lab. "I understand why we're doing this," she said, pacing back and forth. "But have you thought about what happens next? If we break through and provoke these aliens, we could start a war we can't win. Is that really worth it?" Jaime stepped forward, her expression firm. "Eun-ji, we've been over this. Staying here is an option. The barrier is killing us. Slowly but surely, we have to fight back. And maybe dying trying is better than sitting around waiting to die." Jae-hyun added quietly. Eun-ji shook her head, frustration evident in her eyes. "That's not what I'm saying. I just think we need to consider other options. Maybe there's a way to negotiate instead of attacking." Before anyone could respond, Dongwoo interrupted, his soft voice cutting through the tension. "I've finished analyzing the schematics sent by the Lumina. There might be a way to modify Mjolnir's pulse emitter, so it acts as both a weapon and a communication device." Everyone turned to look at him, surprised. The young robotics prodigy rarely spoke during meetings, preferring to let his inventions do the talking. His suggestion, however, sparked renewed interest. "Explain," Jae-hyun said, leaning forward. Dongwoo adjusted his glasses, clearly nervous under the sudden attention. "If we adjust the frequency of the pulse, we can create a signal strong enough to penetrate the barrier. It could serve as a message to warn them, or maybe even talk to them." Jaime nodded thoughtfully. "That's brilliant. We'll add it to the plan. Worst case scenario, it gives us another tool to use if things go south." Eun-ji seemed less convinced, but didn't argue further. For now, the team agreed to focus on completing Mjolnir and preparing for launch. As the final pieces fell into place, external pressures mounted. Surveillance drones appeared more frequently, circling the subway tunnel and nearby areas. Encrypted messages intercepted by Eun-ji revealed that government agencies were closing in on Thor's location. Someone, or something, was watching them closely. "We need to move again," Min-Su warned during a hasty meeting. "They're getting too close. If they find us, we're done." Jaime frowned, glancing at Jae-hyun. "He's right. We can't risk losing everything now. Start packing up the equipment. We'll relocate to the backup site." The backup site was a remote bunker buried deep within the mountains of Kangwon Province. It was smaller and less equipped than their current location, but it offered better protection from aerial surveillance. Relocation was risky, but staying put was even more dangerous. Over the next few days, the team dismantled their gear and transported it to the new location. The process was grueling, requiring long hours of physical labor and careful coordination. Despite the strain, everyone pulled together, driven by the knowledge that failure was not an option. Once settled, they resumed work with renewed urgency. Every second counted. Outside, Earth's ecosystems were collapsing under the weight of the barrier's influence. Crops failed, rivers dried up, and temperatures fluctuated wildly. Riots erupted in cities worldwide as food shortages and desperation spread. Amid the chaos, THOR clung to hope. They believed in Mjolnir and in themselves. Against all odds, they were determined to break free from the prison imposed upon them by an unknown enemy. Above them, the stars remained hidden, their light stolen by the oppressive barrier. But in the hearts of Jaehyun, Jaime, Minsu, Eunji, and Dongwoo, a spark of defiance burned brighter than ever. Whatever lay beyond the barrier, they were ready to face it head-on. The air in the bunker was thick with tension, as THOR prepared for what might be their final attempt to break through the barrier. Mjolnir stood ready, its sleek frame gleaming under the dim lights of the underground facility. Every bolt had been tightened, every circuit tested, and every contingency planned for, or so they hoped. Yet, despite their meticulous preparations, uncertainty loomed over them like a storm cloud. Jaehyun paced back and forth in front of the ship, his mind racing with calculations and worst-case scenarios. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. They had built a machine capable of punching through an alien construct. But what if it wasn't enough? What if the barrier was just the beginning of something far worse? Jaime noticed his unease and approached him, her voice calm but firm. "You've done everything you can," she said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We all have. Now it's time to trust the plan and each other." Jaehyun nodded, though his expression remained troubled. Trust wasn't easy for him. As much as he believed in the team, he couldn't ignore the risks. If Mjolnir failed, or worse, if it triggered some kind of retaliation, they would have no way to protect themselves or Earth. Minsu, who had been checking the ship's propulsion systems one last time, joined them. "Everything's good to go," he reported, wiping grease from his hands. "But I'll feel better once we're out there." "So will I." Jaime admitted, "Let's just hope this works." As the team finalized launch protocols, Dongwoo made a startling discovery. While analyzing intercepted signals from beyond the barrier, he detected a faint transmission unlike anything they'd encountered before. It was fragmented and distorted, but after hours of decryption, he managed to piece together fragments of a message. "They're trying to talk to us," Dongwoo announced during an emergency meeting, his voice trembling with excitement. "It's not from the architects, the ones who built the barrier. It's another species. They call themselves the Lumina." Eunji leaned forward, her skepticism giving way to curiosity. "What do they want?" Dongwoo hesitated, scrolling through lines of decoded text on his tablet. "They say they oppose the architects. They claim the barrier is part of a larger plan to suppress civilizations like ours. They offer help, but only if we prove ourselves worthy." "Prove ourselves?" Jaehyun echoed, frowning. "How?" "That part's unclear," Dongwoo admitted. "But they've included schematics for a device that could amplify Mjolnir's pulse emitter. If we integrate it correctly, it might give us a fighting chance against the architects." Jaime exchanged glances with Minsu and Eunji. This was unexpected, but it could be their best shot at survival. "We don't have much choice," she said finally. "If the Lumina are willing to help, we should take it. But how do we know we can trust them?" Eunji asked, her tone cautious. "For all we know, this could be a trap." "We can't afford to think like that," Jaehyun interjected. "If they're telling the truth, they could be our only allies. And if they're lying, well, we'll deal with that when it happens." Reluctantly, the team agreed to proceed. Dongwoo set to work modifying Mjolnir systems, integrating the luminous schematics into the ship's pulse emitter. The process was painstaking, requiring precise adjustments to ensure compatibility. Everyone pitched in, working tirelessly to complete the modifications before launch. When the upgrades were finished, Thor gathered around Mjolnir for a final briefing. Jae-hyun stood at the center, addressing the group with a mix of determination and resolve. "This is it," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Once we're inside Mjolnir, there's no turning back. We'll face unknown dangers, and we may not all make out alive. But if we succeed, we'll give humanity a chance to fight back." Jaime stepped forward, her eyes scanning the faces of her teammates. "We've trained for this. We prepared for this. Whatever happens, remember why we're doing it. For Earth, for our families, for everyone counting on us." Min-soo cracked a small smile, though his expression remained serious. "Just don't let me crash the ship, okay?" Dongwoo chuckled nervously, while Eunji offered a rare grin. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, their camaraderie remained unshaken. With final checks completed, Jae-hyun and Jaime climbed aboard Mjolnir, taking their positions in the cockpit. The controls were arranged in a semicircle, with screens displaying real-time data and diagnostics. Outside, Min-soo coordinated support drones designed to distract any defenses the architects might deploy. Eunji monitored communications, ready to intercept any incoming signals, while Dongwoo oversaw the ship's automated systems remotely. As the engines roared to life, the entire bunker trembled. Mjolnir lifted off smoothly, its thrusters glowing bright against the darkness of the tunnel. Moments later, it burst into the night sky, ascending rapidly toward the barrier. Breaking through the barrier proved to be even more challenging than anticipated. As Mjolnir approached, the energy field intensified, creating violent gravitational anomalies and electromagnetic storms. The ship shuddered violently, its hull groaning under the strain. Alarms blared as sensors detected structural stress near critical points. "Hold steady," Jae-hyun shouted, gripping the controls tightly. "We're almost through." Jaime worked furiously to stabilize the ship's systems, rerouting power to reinforce the hull. "Shields are holding, but barely," she called out. Just as it seemed the ship might buckle, Dongwoo's modifications kicked in. The enhanced pulse emitter activated, sending waves of energy rippling outward. For a brief moment, the barrier faltered, creating a narrow opening. Without hesitation, Jae-hyun guided Mjolnir through the gap, emerging on the other side. What they saw took their breath away. Beyond the barrier lay a vast expanse of alien constructs, massive orbital stations, weapons platforms, and ships unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. The scale was overwhelming, a stark reminder how outmatched they truly were. Before they could process the sight, alarms sounded again. A fleet of enemy vessels was closing in, their sleek designs bristling with weapons. Mjolnir sensors detected targeting locks as beams of energy streaked past, narrowly missing the ship. "We need to move," Jaime yelled, her fingers flying across the console. Jae-hyun maneuvered the ship into evasive patterns, dodging blasts while searching for an escape route. Behind them, Min-soo's drones engaged the enemy fleet, drawing fire and buying precious seconds. Meanwhile, Eunji intercepted another transmission, this time from the Lumina. "They're offering coordinates for a safe zone," she relayed urgently. "It's risky, but it might be our only chance." "Send them to navigation," Jae-hyun ordered. "Let's see if we can lose these guys." Using the provided coordinates, Jae-hyun plotted a course through the alien formations, weaving between massive structures and avoiding deadly traps. The chase was relentless, with enemy ships firing relentlessly. At one point, a direct hit damaged Mjolnir's starboard engine, forcing Jaime to reroute power manually. Finally, they reached the designated safe zone, a cluster of asteroids surrounded by dense debris fields. The enemy ships hesitated, unwilling to risk following them into such treacherous terrain. Slowly, the pursuit ended, leaving Mjolnir battered but intact. Inside the cockpit, silence reigned as the team caught their breath. They had survived their first encounter with the architects, but the victory felt hollow. Beyond the viewport, the alien constructs loomed ominously, reminders of the forces arrayed against them. "We did it," Jaime whispered, breaking the quiet. "We broke through." "For now," Jae-hyun added grimly. But this is just the beginning. Unji nodded, her earlier doubts replaced by grim determination. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Outside, the stars twinkled faintly. Their light filtered to the remnants of the barrier. For the first time in months, Earth was visible below, a fragile blue orb hanging in the void. Despite the challenges ahead, THOR knew they had taken the first step toward reclaiming their place among the stars. Above them, the universe stretched endlessly, full of mysteries and threats. But in the hearts of Jaehyun, Haimi, Minsu, Unji, and Dongwoo, a spark of defiance burned brighter than ever. Whatever lay ahead, they were ready to face it head-on. The safe zone among the asteroids offered little comfort. Mjolnir floated silently, its damaged systems flickering as Jaehyun and Haimi worked to stabilize the ship. The cockpit was dimly lit, with only the faint glow of control panels illuminating their faces. Outside, the alien constructs loomed ominously in the distance, their shapes sharp against the endless blackness of space. Jaehyun leaned back in his seat, wiping sweat from his brow. "We're lucky to be alive," he muttered, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Haimi nodded, her hands still busy rerouting power to keep the ship operational. "Luck won't save us next time," she said grimly. "We need a plan, something better than just running." Minsu's voice crackled over the comms from his remote station, controlling the drones. "The enemy fleet is regrouping near the edge of the debris field. If we stay here too long, they'll find a way in." Unji chimed in, her tone urgent. "And we're not the only ones watching. I've picked up another signal. This one's stronger than before. It's from the Lumina again." Dongwoo adjusted his equipment, decoding the new transmission. His eyes widened as he read the message aloud. "They say reinforcements are coming, but not for us. For them." He pointed to the alien fleet on the monitor. The architects have called for backup. The news sent a wave of tension through the team. They had barely survived their first encounter with the architects' forces. Facing an even larger fleet seemed impossible. "We can't fight them directly," Jaehyun said, his mind racing. "Not yet, but maybe we don't have to." "What do you mean?" Haimi asked, turning to him. "The pulse emitter," Jaehyun explained. "If we modify it further, we might be able to use it as more than just a weapon. Dongwoo, Unji, can you adjust it to emit a high-frequency pulse that could disable their ships temporarily?" Dongwoo hesitated, tapping at his tablet. "It's risky. Overloading the emitter could damage Mjolnir permanently. But it might give us enough time to escape or strike back." Jaehyun pressed. "We don't have any other options." After a moment of silence, Dongwoo nodded. "I'll try, but we'll need to divert all available power to the emitter. That means shutting down non-essential systems." "Do it," Haimi ordered. "We'll manage." While Dongwoo and Unji worked on modifying the pulse emitter, Jaehyun plotted their next move. Using data gathered during their initial breach of the barrier, he identified a weak point in the alien formation, a gap between two massive orbital stations where their defenses overlapped imperfectly. If they timed their attack correctly, they could slip through undetected. Minsu coordinated with his drones, programming them to create diversions by targeting key structures within the alien fleet. "These bots won't last long against their weapons," he warned, "but they should buy us some time." As preparations continued, the team couldn't shake the feeling that they were gambling with their lives and the fate of Earth. Each decision felt like stepping closer to the edge of a cliff, unsure if they would fall or survive. Finally, everything was ready. Mjolnir's engines hummed softly as Jaehyun guided the ship out of the asteroid field. Behind them, Minsu's drone surged forward, launching attacks on the nearest alien vessels. Explosions lit up the darkness as the drone self-destructed, drawing the attention of the enemy fleet. "They're distracted," Haimi reported, monitoring the chaos on her screen. "Now's our chance." Jaehyun pushed the throttle forward, sending Mjolnir speeding toward the gap in the alien formation. Alarms blared as sensors detected incoming fire, but the ship held steady. Just as they reached the critical point, Jaehyun activated the modified pulse emitter. A blinding flash of energy erupted from Mjolnir, spreading outward in a wide arc. Alien ships caught in the pulse's radius went dark, their systems overloaded and disabled. For a brief moment, the battlefield fell silent. Got them, Jaime exclaimed, relief washing over her face. But the victory was short-lived. The unaffected ships quickly recovered, redirecting their focus to Mjolnir. Lasers streaked past the cockpit, forcing Jae-hyun to execute evasive maneuvers. The ship rocked violently as a glancing blow struck its rear stabilizer. "We can't take much more of this," Jaime shouted, struggling to maintain control of the ship's failing systems. "Hang on," Jae-hyun replied, steering Mjolnir into a tight spiral. With every ounce of skill he possessed, he guided the ship through the narrow opening between the orbital stations. Behind them, the alien fleet scrambled to pursue, but their larger vessels couldn't navigate the confined space as easily. For now, they were safe. Once clear of immediate danger, the team regrouped to assess their situation. Mjolnir's damage was extensive, and repairs would take time. Worse, the pulse emitter had burned out completely, leaving them without their most powerful weapon. "We used up our ace card," Min-soo remarked bitterly. "What happens when they catch up to us again?" Eun-ji frowned, scrolling through intercepted communications. "According to these messages, the architects are mobilizing reinforcements. If we don't act soon, we'll be surrounded." Jae-hyun stared at the monitors, his jaw clenched in thought. "Then we hit them where it hurts, their command center." Jaime raised an eyebrow. "You're talking about taking out their main base? That's suicide." "It's also our only shot," Jae-hyun countered. "If we destroy their command hub, it could cripple their entire operation. We buy Earth enough time to recover, and maybe even negotiate peace." The idea was bold and dangerous, but no one had a better suggestion. After a heated discussion, the team agreed to proceed. Using intelligence provided by the Lumina, they located the coordinates of the primary command station deep within the alien formation. Reaching the target required navigating through heavily fortified zones, a task made even harder by Mjolnir's weakened state. The journey was fraught with peril, as enemy patrols closed in from all sides. Min-soo's remaining drones provided cover, sacrificing themselves to protect the ship. By the time they arrived at the command station, Mjolnir was barely holding together. "This is it," Jae-hyun said, gripping the controls tightly. "One last push." Jaime armed the ship's remaining weapons, her hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Let's make it count." As Mjolnir approached the command station, alarms sounded throughout the alien fleet. Dozens of ships converged on their position, unleashing a barrage of firepower. The ship's shields flickered dangerously, and sparks flew from overloaded circuits. "Hold on," Jae-hyun yelled, pushing the engines to their limit. With pinpoint precision, he guided Mjolnir straight into the heart of the command station. At the last second, Jaime triggered the ship's self-destruct sequence, releasing a massive explosion that engulfed the structure. The blast rippled outward, obliterating the command station and crippling nearby ships. For a moment, the battlefield felt eerily quiet. "We did it," Jaime whispered, tears welling in her eyes. But there was no time to celebrate. With Mjolnir destroyed, the team ejected in escape pods, drifting helplessly in the void. As rescue drones deployed by the Lumina retrieved them, they watched the remnants of the alien fleet retreat, their mission accomplished, for now. Back aboard a Lumina vessel, THOR received medical treatment and debriefed their new allies. The Lumina praised their bravery, but warned that the architects would not give up easily. Humanity's struggle was far from over. As Jae-hyun gazed out at the stars once more, he felt a mix of pride and uncertainty. They had broken through the barrier and struck a decisive blow against their oppressors. But the cost had been high, and the road ahead remained uncertain. Still, in his heart, he knew one thing for sure: humanity would never surrender. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The escape pods carrying Jae-hyun, Jaime, Min-soo, Eun-ji, and Dong-woo were retrieved by a Lumina vessel moments after the destruction of the command station. The alien ship was unlike anything they'd ever seen. Its sleek design seemed to shimmer with light, blending seamlessly into surrounding stars. Inside, the air was cool and calm, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just endured. The Lumina greeted them warmly, their forms glowing faintly as they moved. They communicated through a mix of telepathy and translated speech. Their voices soft but clear. "You have done what we could not," one of them said, its tone filled with admiration. "Your courage has weakened the Architect's grip on this region of space." Jae-hyun stepped forward, his body still aching from the battle, but his mind sharp. "We didn't do it for praise," he replied. "We did it to protect Earth and to send a message." The Lumina nodded solemnly. "Your message will be heard. But know this, the Architects are relentless. They will regroup and return. You must prepare your people for what lies ahead." Jaime clenched her fists, frustration bubbling beneath her calm exterior. "And how do you expect us to fight them? We barely survived this time." "You won't face them alone," the Lumina assured her. "We will stand with you. Together, we can resist their tyranny." Back on Earth, news of Thor's success spread quickly. Though the barrier remained intact, cracks had begun to form, literal and metaphorical. Sunlight filtered through weak points in the energy field, casting golden rays across landscapes that had been shrouded in darkness for months. People around the world watched the skies with renewed hope, their spirits lifted by the knowledge that humanity had fought back. But the victory came at a cost. Mjolnir was gone, along with much of the technology Thor had spent years developing. The team knew they would need to rebuild, and fast. With the Architect's reinforcements on the way, there was no time to rest. Jae-hyun, Jaime, and the others returned to Earth aboard a Lumina transport ship. As they descended through the atmosphere, they marveled at the changes below. Rivers flowed freely again. Crops began to sprout in fields once barren, and cities buzzed with activity. It was a fragile recovery, but it was progress. Once on the ground, they reunited with remnants of Thor's network, scientists, engineers, and volunteers who had kept operations running in their absence. The team wasted no time setting up new labs and workshops, determined to construct weapons and defenses capable of repelling future attacks. Min-Soo took charge of training pilots for a new fleet of fighter drones, while Dongwoo worked tirelessly to replicate the tech salvage from Mjolnir. Eun-ji focused on improving Earth's communication systems, ensuring humanity could coordinate globally if war broke out. And Jae-hyun and Jaime led efforts to build a second-generation spacecraft. This one stronger, faster, and deadlier than its predecessor. As weeks turned into months, tensions rose. Reports poured in of increased alien activity near Earth's orbit. The Architects were testing the barrier, probing for weaknesses. Each attempt sent shockwaves through the planet, destabilizing ecosystems and causing widespread panic. During one particularly intense breach attempt, Jae-hyun stood in the control room of Thor's headquarters, watching monitors display real-time data. His hands trembled slightly as he processed the information. "They're getting bolder," he muttered, his voice tight with worry. Jaime placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We've faced worse. We'll handle this." But even she couldn't hide her concern. The Architects weren't just probing. They were preparing for an invasion. To counter the threat, Thor devised a daring plan. Using schematics provided by the Lumina, they built a network of satellites equipped with high-powered emitters designed to amplify Earth's natural magnetic field. When activated, the system would create a protective shield around the planet, reinforcing the barrier and buying humanity precious time. Activating the shield required precise timing and coordination. Every satellite had to come online simultaneously, or the entire system would fail. On the day of the launch, the team gathered in the control room, their eyes glued to screens displaying countdown timers. "This is it," Jae-hyun said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Let's show them we're not afraid." At 0 hour, the satellites fired up, bathing the planet in a brilliant blue glow. For a few tense seconds, nothing happened. Then, the barrier flared to life, expanding outward and stabilizing under the influence of the new technology. Sensors confirmed that the Architect's probes had been neutralized. Cheers erupted in the control room as the team embraced, tears streaming down their faces. They had done it. They had protected Earth once more. But the celebration was short-lived. Hours later, a transmission arrived from deep space. It wasn't from the Architects or the Lumina. It was a broadcast meant for all of humanity. A massive holographic image appeared above Earth cities, showing a towering figure clad in armor made of shifting light. I am Vorith, the figure declared, its voice resonating like thunder, leader of the architects. Your defiance has intrigued us, but it ends now. Jae-hyun and Jaime exchanged grim looks. This was it, the moment they had feared. Vorith continued, his tone cold and commanding. Surrender your autonomy, and we may spare your species. Resist, and you will perish. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving silence in its wake. Across the globe, people looked to the skies, unsure whether to feel fear or defiance. For Thor, there was no question. We won't surrender, Jae-hyun said firmly, addressing the team. Not now. Not ever. Jaime nodded, her expression resolute. If they want to fight, we'll give them one. With renewed determination, Thor prepared for the final showdown. They retrofitted old satellites with offensive capabilities, turning them into orbital weapons platforms. Min-Soo trained civilian pilots to operate remote control fighters, while Dongwoo programmed swarms of autonomous drones to swarm enemy ships. Eun-ji hacked into global networks, spreading propaganda videos showcasing humanity's resilience and unity. When the day of reckoning arrived, Earth stood ready. The Architects' fleet descended upon the planet, their ships blotting out the sun. But instead of cowering, humanity fought back with everything they had. Satellites fired beams of concentrated energy, drones swarmed enemy vessels, and civilians rallied in support of their defenders. At the heart of the battle, Thor launched their new spacecraft, a sleek, powerful vessel named Valiant. Piloted by Jae-hyun and Jaime, it soared through the chaos, targeting key enemy positions. With Dongwoo's guidance on the ground, they breached the flagship and delivered a devastating payload directly into its core. The explosion lit up the sky, scattering debris across the void. One by one, the Architects' ships retreated, their forces decimated. As the dust settled, Earth emerged victorious, but scarred. In the aftermath, humanity began to heal. The barrier dissolved completely, allowing starlight to flood the planet once more. People looked to the heavens with a mixture of awe and gratitude, knowing they had earned their place among the stars. For Thor, the journey was far from over. Jae-hyun and Jaime stood side by side, gazing up at the night sky. This isn't the end, Jae-hyun said softly. It's just the beginning. Jaime smiled, leaning against him. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Behind them, the team worked tirelessly, already planning for the challenges ahead. They had shown the universe that humanity wouldn't back down, and though the road ahead would be difficult, they knew they were ready. Above them, the stars twinkled brightly, a reminder of the infinite possibilities waiting beyond Earth's borders. Humanity had answered the call, and they were just getting started.